Hey guys, Dark Humility here. You can always catch me at www.twitch.tv/Dark Humility or / whatever. Dark Humility, 6 to 7 days a week. And for Diablo 2 action, we play PD2, Vanilla LOD, and of course D2R when it comes out September 23rd. We're going to be doing hardcore group found with the community when it comes out. Let's go. Alright, guys, today we have a very special guide. This is something very dear to my heart when it comes to this game. It is my favorite farm area in the game overall. Arcane Sanctuary Guide, an Arcane Sanctuary Farming Guide. I'm going to try to make it as comprehensive as possible. Of course, you can always check out my other guides on YouTube for Project Diablo 2 and Vanilla LOD, and soon D2R, which is, what Vanilla LOD is for the most part. And, of course, you can also check out all my guides. There's a lot of guides I have on Maxroll as well, d2.maxroll.gg. Check it out. Your new comprehensive Diablo 2 resource. We're learning all about the game and good for newbies and experts alike. And of course, we will of course be posting my 5,000 Arcane run dataset in the description below and in the first pinned comment. I'll also be posting my Arcane overview video where I go over that dataset. So you guys can learn more about the power of Arcane. That will not be the focus of today, though. The focus will be how to farm Arcane, why to farm Arcane, how it works and everything. And, of course, we'll be going over the Arcane fundamentals to start. So we're going to be going over, like, the first main builds and whatnot. So we're going to go into 5 top builds. I got 5 top picks. Overall top picks. There's like 2 builds kind of rolled into one just to show you like a high strength build and a low strength build on those two. But yeah, 5 overall top builds and primary setups for Arcane Sanctuary Farming and demos after we go over the fundamentals of Arcane. And of course, we'll also talk about besides those 5 builds, there's also an honorary mention of the Blizzard Sorc, which we will not be demoing today, but if you get high enough cold mastery on a Blizzard Sorceress, she can break through those high cold resistances of those specters, and she can kill them effectively, just like these other 5 builds. But because Blizzard is on a cooldown, and you only have Ice Blast on top of that to do lots of damage, it's a little more limited than these 5 top builds, which is why I'm going to show these builds specifically. But you can also do that build as well. And one thing to keep in mind is that we are doing this on my LOD, my completed softcore LOD random maps pluggy Grail project. So none of these items I'm going to be showing for creating these builds and for running Arcane are going to be 100% perfect. But they will be really, really good, and they should be close enough to ideal to kind of get the point across. And of course, I'll explain if there's anything else that maybe should be slightly more ideal if possible. Alright, so with all that in mind, let's get into the Arcane Sanctuary Farming Guide. Arcane Sanctuary, the power of Arcane is real. So the first thing we should be going over, though, is that what you're always going to want to do is ideally you want player 7. So if you don't understand how player count affects drops in Diablo 2, elite monsters like Ghoul Monster the Grey or whatever it's called, you get the idea. The unique monsters, the brown text monsters, those things will always drop an item of magic or higher quality. They also drop runes and gems, no matter what. At least one, and then they drop potions, no matter what the player count is. Super uniques, which is a special type of monster like Eldritch or Shank, always drop 2 of these types of items. Pendle Skin is also in that class as well. In higher player count in Diablo 2, what you mostly benefit from is that the random monsters, the regular mobs, the minions even as well, are also rolled up into that. Minions of the elite monsters. They all have higher drop rates, so they're more likely to drop an item on the ground. Their no drop percentage, as it's called, drops when the player count goes up, and they're more likely to drop some kind of item, just a standard item in the loot table. It doesn't increase the odds that an item that drops is going to be more rare, but it does increase the odds that an item just simply drops. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, this increase in drop rate benefit only occurs from players 1, 3, 5, and player 7. So player 7, so only on the odd player counts does this occur. So player 7 being the highest of those means that we're going to have the best possible no drop percentage, which is really low at player 7. So at player 7 and players 8 is where the big benefit is. Players 8 doesn't change it from player 7, but players 8 is still the same as player 7 when it comes to drops. Player 6 is the same as players 5, and so on when it comes to drops. For experience, you get benefit at every player count, but we're not talking. Experience isn't a major concern about in Arcane Sanctuary. It is a level 79 area, so you're not going to be getting a lot of experience in here past like level 89, and even before that it's still going to be pretty heavy experience penalties past probably like level 84. Even level 7, even past level 79, it's going to start slowing down pretty heavily. So yeah, that's important stuff to kind of get out of the way there. Player count is very important. If you kill the ghosts or pop the chests in Arcane in players 1, it's going to be painful. Very few ghosts are going to drop items, and it's going to take a very long time. If that's the best you can do, so be it. One thing to mention though is that in single player you can set the player count like I'm doing right here, but in multiplayer you can join a full game and maybe a game of people doing bail runs. You can also have a group of friends where you farm different areas in the game and your job is to farm Arcane, and then you can up the player count that way. Of course, multi-boxing was a thing on vanilla Battle.net. I'm not sure about D2R, but it very well could be pretty prominent as well. And of course, you can buy multiple versions of the game and then stack your own characters in the game for higher player count. So even on Battle.net, there are many ways to increase your player count. Many ways. So that's a good thing to know. All right. So yeah, including, like I said, you can just join and follow bail runs even if you're playing alone and you don't have any friends or whatever your problem is. So it doesn't actually matter. All right. One thing to also note, so yeah, player 7 is optimal for arcane farming. Another thing to note about player count is it makes the monsters stronger, so you don't necessarily want to do players 8 for fun if you can avoid it, but if that's all you have the option of doing, then it's fine. It's not a big deal. Monsters will have slightly more HP though in players 8, and they'll do slightly more damage. So it's, well, actually significantly more HP, but it's not as big of a deal as you might think per player count. But the difference from players 1 to players 8 in terms of monster damage and HP is massive. So, yeah, it's this is why we're gonna want to do player 7 just overall. All right, so that's it about player count. Player count's very important though for Arcane and understanding how to farm this area properly. Another thing we should mention here is the monster immunes in Arcane Sanctuary. So we'll notice that we have physical immune specters, fire immune hell clans, and cold immune ghoul lords. All right. Those are the monsters that spawn in Arcane Sanctuary. Period. So what does this mean? This means that lightning damage characters are going to have a significant advantage in here because there's no lightning immunes. On top of that, the specters don't even have lightning resistance, which means that even if you don't have infinity on a lightning sword, you could still farm Arcane with a very bare bones geared lightning sword. Skills are definitely going to be very helpful in that point, but even in player 7, you will be able to do some kind of arcane farming with a bare bones lightning sork in here because they have no lightning resistance. Some of the other monsters, I think, have some lightning resistance, but those aren't the main targets. We're going to be targeting the chests and the specters, the super chests, and we'll talk about why that is in a moment. So, anyway. So yeah, the monster immunes are very important. Another thing to mention about ghosts is that the ghosts are cold, magic, and poison resistant on top of being physical immune. This means that poison damage characters are definitely going to struggle a bit more in here. So are magic damage characters, so like Bone Spear, Hammerdins, do tend to struggle a lot more with this farm, which is why I don't recommend them. Poison Necros do so much damage they can get away with it at a really high level, but it's still a little bit of a struggle because you have to cast lower resistance and whatnot just to break through that poison resistance. And it takes longer to kill them than most other characters, so the rotation takes longer. Of course, cold means that like a Hurricane Druid would also take a while to kill these specters, most likely, unless you have like Doom, Infinity, and everything else stacked. But in general, it'd be pretty bad. And then of course you'd kill a lot of ghosts off the edge, which is something else we're going to mention. There are other builds that could also work, like Dream Paladin, because Dream Paladin mostly does lightning damage to a pretty large degree. However, one problem with that build is that it relies on Holy Shock, and Holy Shock can kill the ghosts off the edge, and it does all the time. And there's no way you can turn it off unless you take off your dream items. So there are a lot of other builds that could potentially work besides the 5 we're going to be going over today. My 5 top picks for farming Arcane based on a lot of testing and whatnot. I love this area. It's so insane. It's so efficient for farming certain items. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So yeah, we're going to be focusing on the Spectres and the 8 super chests. If you guys don't know, the Spectres look like this. This is a Spectre. You're going to want to kill them like that. And super chest. So why are there 8 instead of 9, you might be asking, Mr. Dark Humility? Well, this is 2 super chests right here. This is not a super chest. So in this side right here, this side specifically, there are 2 super chests. There's one that is not a super chest. So you're going to be farming 8 super chests, not 9. If you go on this side, though, you'll see that there are 3 super chests. All 3 of them dump a whole bunch of items. And as you can see in Player 7, they dump a lot of items. So that's going to be pretty important for sure. Alright, and then one other thing, of course, to mention is that we must kill the ghosts over the platform. So they can fly outside of the boundaries of the platforms, and this is going to be the case for D2R as well. I've definitely confirmed it. They only drop items if you kill them on the platform, though, which means that when you farm the Spectres with whichever of the 5 builds I show, preferably if they're not already on the platforms, you want to gather them a bit and then fire them if possible. It can be quicker to just fire. And, there is more efficiency somewhat to that simply by firing and not caring if they're over the platforms. But keep in mind they will not drop an item. I mean, that's a potential item lost, or just a wasted chance at getting an item by not killing a ghost. People like to joke that, when you kill ghosts over the over the space, that you lose a jaw rune or something by doing it. I mean, they don't drop an item at all, so they never had a potential to if they are dropping outside of the boundaries of the platform. But it could have been a potential one if you fired it on the platform. You'll never know, right? This is one of the more frustrating aspects for farming Arcane for a lot of people, which is one reason why some people stay away from this farming area. But as I'm going to be showing you guys, and like I said, you should definitely check out the data and whatnot that I'm going to link below the video here. It's insane. Like, it's crazy. And of course, we're going to explain why a bit more in depth here, so as we're farming, so you guys can see that as well. Maybe we'll even find something insane just while testing. I don't know. It's possible. Testing, not huge odds there, but you never know. And yeah, so once again, ghosts are physical immune, cold resistant, poison resistant, and magic resistant. That means there's not too many types of characters that are going to be insanely good at killing them. Also, another thing about Arcane is that it's very spread out, so high mobility is also another semi-requirement for being efficient at farming Arcane. So you'll notice I'm on a Sorceress at the moment. This is my personal favorite build, which we're about to go over here in a second. But the way it works is that Arcane is spread out, the ghosts are spread out, they're always in different locations. You have to be able to move between the ghost packs and move between the chests quickly to efficiently farm Arcane. If you don't have a lightning or a fire type build, we'll talk about that as well, because ghosts have no fire resistance as well. And if you don't have one that can move quickly, it's going to be a little harder for sure. It's going to be significantly harder, and there's not too many builds that can do that extremely well. But we'll go over the ones that can. So yeah, if you have builds that are, you're still walking around, you don't have teleport. Teleport I would almost say is a must. Definitely need some source of teleport, either Enigma or a Sorceress. Otherwise, and if you have any of those resistances or immunes I talked about, unless it's Blizzard, or Orb, which in that case you can rely on Cold Mastery potentially and do pretty decent with Frozen Orb or Blizzard farming Arcane. But besides that, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough. We're not going to show the Blizzard or Orb build, but because it's a little less efficient than even a really cheaply made Fireball Stork, which is another build we're going to go over. So yeah, there's a couple of other options for sure, but they all have a lot of problems. And for those builds, I'd recommend farming other things like Pit, Chaos, Travancore, Cows, depending on what the build is, before you get that high mobility teleport and before you get that high fire and lightning damage, or just lightning damage and fire in general. I will not mince words though. This area is going to get you rich quick. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of go over why it's different from a lot of other areas and why Arcane is special. So let's go over why Arcane is special first, before we start going over our first build. So Arcane... Aw, oh, darn. Ah, no. Okay, that's actually not what you want to do. Let's, alright, blooper reel. Roll in the bloopers. Okay. We're good. Alright, so you actually don't want to cast Thunderstorm. I'll go over that in a bit, but you actually don't want to do that. Okay, so you'll notice when I kill these ghosts here, they drop a lot of mana potions. They drop a lot of mana potions in general, lots of potions. They just dropped a gem and they dropped a charm, and then they also dropped a scroll. Okay, so those are other types of items that they drop. So another gem there. See if we can get them to drop a rune. See, that's the... Okay, that's a piece of jewelry, which is another thing they can drop. Alright. Just gonna kind of demo this real quick, so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. Of course, you can always test this out yourself, but...
I can't carry anymore.
Alright, well, we're gonna be able to show it off again pretty soon. But I think you guys get the idea. So the ghosts don't drop armor items, period. If you notice when I was killing the ghosts themselves, the specters, which are in the same class of monsters along with Black Souls, Gloams, Stormcasters, Stranglers, Ghosts, Specters, all those types of monsters all share one thing in common in Diablo 2. They cannot drop base armor and base weapon items, period. So we're talking, when the game's calculating what to drop, they just don't have them in their loot table. So they cannot drop things like chest pieces, they cannot drop helmets of any kind, they cannot drop weapons of any kind. Because they can't drop these types of base equipment items, the rest of what they can drop is favored by a lot. How much is it favored? Somewhere between 3 and 4 times, depending on how you weight it. So it's 3 to 4 times more likely to drop these other items than like any other monster in the game. I think the exact figure might be 3.1. I think I've also seen like 3.7, but there's a lot of inaccuracies in certain like drop calculators out there. But anyway, it's huge. It's huge. Cows, for reference, only have like a 0.8 times higher chance of dropping these other types of items that I'm about to mention. So 3.1, even at a minimum, is insane. These items that they specialize in dropping are runes, charms of all kinds, jewelry, jewels, so actual like jewels, not rainbow facets, however. The area level's too low to drop certain things like rainbow facets. Gems, and of course scrolls and potions. The scrolls, potions, gems, jewelry, jewels, charms, and runes. So for runes, that's insane because as a level 79 area, that means a regular ghost can drop a cham rune, up to a cham rune. That means every rune up through cham rune. You know what that also means? That also means burr runes, jaw runes, really big runes, sir runes. And trust me, like in the data set I'm going to link below if you haven't already seen the video, it's there. It's crazy amount of runes. All those runes, low runes, ohm runes, vex runes, whatever. The regular ghosts, even the other regular monsters in here can also drop them. The minions theoretically can drop a Zod. I've never seen it, but it's extremely rare. I wouldn't count on a Zod in here, simply because the regular monsters cannot drop it. It's such a rare rune to begin with, and then you would also need a very specific types of monsters to drop it. So, yeah, it's no good. One thing to mention, of course, as well, on top of all those other crazy items that it has way higher chances of dropping than most other monsters in the game, the chests also have way higher chances of dropping these types of items as well. So the super chests are the same thing. This is the only area in the game that has super chests combined with specters that are guaranteed to spawn, mind you, guaranteed to spawn. Of course, you also have specters like in areas like the Tower Cellar, which that's a pretty good area to farm like ghosts as well. Chaos also has these as well. I mean, it has Stormcasters. However, and Stormcasters are also very reliable, which makes Chaos a great place to farm if you're looking for these types of monsters. Of course, yeah, it's just in most areas it's pretty rough. Like, they can spawn, but not necessarily. Like, for instance, in the Tomb of Talrasha or in Worldstone Keep, you can also find them, along with high density, high monster density. But the other problem with farming those areas is that they don't always spawn in them. One thing to mention about these super chests is, if we go to the end here, and we go to the super chests, we'll see that they drop lots of items. In D2R, you're not going to have to worry about loot stacking as much because you can slurp up the gold with auto gold pickup, and of course they'll be more distributed. So that's actually something, even if they don't add loot filters, or even if they take a while to add them, is going to be really nice. And one thing to mention about the super chest is they can drop up to low runes, so LO rune. In Act 2, that's just the case for all clickable type items. Monsters, on the other hand, in here, like I said, the regular ones can drop up to Cham. So, that's all good stuff. They can drop Cham. That means they can drop every rune except for Zod. Every single one. And it's all based on odds at that point, but remember that they are 3.1 times at minimum. Some estimates say upwards of almost 4 times higher than most monsters to drop these runes, which means that when the game calculates for runes, and when it runs through rune TCs, it's just way more likely that you get rune TCs in general. That the game will pull up the rune TCs because there's no armor TCs at all. So there's none of that stuff. There's no weapons that can drop, nothing. So it's going to go through those rune TCs more often. It's more likely. And you're going to get a lot more runes. The chests also have advantages when it comes to runes, charms, gems, jewels, jewelry, and of course, other stuff like gold in the case of chests. Of course, one thing to mention about the ghosts is that the ghosts can't even drop gold. So, yeah, they can only drop scrolls, so town portal scrolls, identity scrolls, mana potions. They can't even drop health potions, which is kind of strange. And then they can drop all those other types of items that I mentioned. Which means if you're trying to craft, which means if you're trying to get rich off of runes, if you're trying to get godly charm inventories on single player or online, or you're trying to sell godly charms, or you're trying to get godly jewels like 1540s, all of that stuff drops here. The godliest charms up to 40 life skillers, not 41 lifers. Jewels, just not facets. Even Geed's fortunes can drop all the time in here. Grand charms, small charms, large charms, even perfect small charms, 320/20s, all of that stuff can drop in here. I've even seen a lot of examples of perfect charms, single resist charms, or even other perfect charms dropping here. 40 life skillers, 100% can happen. Like I said, runes up through Cham, and then of course, you know, all the flawless gems you could ever want, and jewelry. So no Maras unless it's from a minion, strangely enough, but you can get up to Seraphs from a unique amulet, you can get Tal's amulet, you can get Stone of Jordans, you can get BK rings. Yeah, it's pretty nuts stuff. Alright, so without further ado, as I'm so inclined to say in all my videos, without further ado, stop rambling about all the specifics of Arcane. One thing I should mention about all those items that you would normally be looking for in Arcane, except for those unique jewelry pieces and set jewelry pieces and unique charms like the Geed's Fortune that I just mentioned, except for all that stuff and like rare rings and things like that and godly rare rings and all that other stuff, charms, the odds of charms dropping or runes dropping or the actual jewels themselves dropping or the gems dropping or the jewelry actually dropping itself with no modification to the quality of those items, so getting set or unique versions of them, are not affected by Magic Find. They are not affected by Magic Find. So one thing that is not important when building a build for Arcane Sanctuary is Magic Find. It is something you can put on if you can fit it, just simply because it can help you with getting rare rings and things of that nature, or unique rings and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, the big ticket stuff that you're looking for in here, you don't need Magic Find for. So you can just go ham on the damage, ham on the mobility, and you'll be fine. If you have some MF though, it helps. I always like to carry a Geeds with me if possible. But alright, first, let's go over my favorite build for running Arcane. This is the 117 FCR, 40k lightning damage Sorceress. Lightning Sorceress. So, if you guys caught on Max Roll, for instance, I also did a Lightning Sorceress guide. I did demo farming this area in that guide once with this exact build. This build, well, pretty much. I don't know if it was identical, but pretty similar. This build is just straight up amazing. You get life per kill, you have a lot of quality of life, you have good defensiveness, you get res, you get damage, you move very quickly, and it's got pretty much everything going for it. I think it personally, it is the most efficient build for farming Arcane overall in general. Obviously, you can always modify it in small ways here and there, but it's really good. There are some thoughts that maybe it's more efficient to farm maybe with some other of these builds that I'm going to go over in the top 5, but you can always let me know in the comments section what you actually think. Alright, anyway, let's go over the stats, skills, and gear and everything just to show you guys, how to build an Arcane Farming Sorceress, an ideal one. This is ideal, so keep in mind, you can have lower level gear. You can definitely use like Viper Magi's and other stuff that just has damage and res and that kind of stuff. Whatever you can use. FCR, as long as you get your FCR like up to 117, you get anywhere north of anywhere north of like 20k lightning damage. You can farm this area even without infinity. So you can use even things like stealth and all kinds of stuff. I would say if you have below 117 FCR though, it's a little rough. It's doable, but you might rather use another one of the builds that I'm going to be proposing coming up here. Anyway, alright, let's go. So, enough strength to wear your gear, no dex, all vitality, no energy. You get energy enough from your gear and you're set. And of course you have mana potions, so you're good to go. You can even wear Scrolls of Town Portal in your belt, so you're good. You don't even need a Tome of Town Portal up in here, so you're good to go. Alright, res is maxed. It doesn't have to be, especially if you're farming softcore. If you're farming hardcore, definitely max your res in here, because you can take a lot of damage. But as I go through these different builds, you'll see that I don't always do this. Alright, life is really high and whatnot with CTA. 250 MF, like I said, you don't need it, but it does benefit that unique jewelry find. If you can fit it in, do it. It's not needed. Like, I could even wear Frostburns here if you just wanted more mana in case you didn't want to ever run out of mana. I mean, you still don't really for the most part, but you can do what you want. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do as long as you have damage and mobility, and it's lightning or fire damage, and we'll show kind of this stuff in general. All right, 120 FCR, so 117. That's what we want. Faster unlock is good through moving through town. That's good, nice, but not needed. Faster hit recovery 86. I would say the minimum if you're not going a max block build should probably be 60, or at least 42. So if hitting those breakpoints are nice as well, but the 86 breakpoint is definitely really solid. So it's pretty ideal stuff going on here once again. And yeah, so I only have 8% damage reduction. I'm playing no. This is a softcore build for sure, but it's all set to go. And we got our res. Alright. Alright, next up, let's go over the skills. So, just want to max out lightning and all of the synergies. So, lightning and synergies. Pretty cool, right? That's all I gotta do. And max lightning mastery. So, lightning, synergies, lightning mastery. You don't even have to put a point in a thunderstorm. And I'm actually going to explain why you don't want to do this. So, thunderstorm will put the specters into hit recovery, which means that if they're flying off the platform, it could strike them and it can kill them off the platform. And it can also strike them and put them in a hit recovery, keeping them from moving onto the platform when you're trying to gather them onto the platform, which makes it tougher to kill them on the platform. So I actually recommend not using Thunderstorm on this build. Another thing I recommend not doing is using Oculus, but we'll talk about that when we get to the gear. Alright, and then of course just make sure you have Teleport. We have it from Enigma, so we're good to go. And then of course 1 point Frozen Armor and 1 point Warmth. That's all you gotta do. You're not even gonna be using Static Field in here at all, so it's pretty simple stuff. At most you'll be using Chain Lightning and Lightning. Most of the time you're gonna be using Lightning though, because Chain Lightning is a bit erratic, and once again, kind of like with T-Storm, it kills stuff off the platforms more often. But sometimes if you have a whole bunch of specters and they're spread out in an area, you can alternate between using Lightning and Chain Lightning as needed for efficient killing of the specters or the other monsters around you. Alright, so that's it for that one, and of course we got gear. All you really need on the Mercenary is at least for an ideal mercenary, is Infinity. If you don't have Infinity, though, Insight will work fine. But Infinity is definitely where a lot of the real power of the Lightning Sword farming Arcane really comes from. And then, of course, you use Adaral's Visage and Fortitude, which are the ideal setup for an Infinity Mercenary. But once again, you can kind of just throw on whatever else. He's not going to die here much in here in general, so as long as you have Infinity, you're kind of good to go. Heart of the Yoke. really solid. You can also use the Shudas. Key here is just making sure you have skills and FCR. Shudas gives a bit more damage, but it doesn't have res. And I prefer kind of the quality of life on this build. Enigma. Enigma gives life after each kill, so when you kill the specters, you're constantly healing and you don't have to use potions very often. That's a pretty big deal. You can, of course, stack this left row here with health potions, but if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to want some sustain, right? I like sustain. It also gives MF, it gives 2 skills, it gives a lot of strength. It merely makes you really tanky, so even if you get amped and you find yourself jumping into piles of, like, absolute just destroyers, just absolute dangerous monsters, extra fast fanaticism, specters with might aura, and, you know, the whole 9 yards, you will have an ability to take hits and survive and get out of situations like that, as long as you have FHR and HP, and that's what Enigma provides. Griffin's Eye, best in slot, period. Of course, you know, Shaco would probably be the next best choice. But once again, FCR and the enemy negative lightning res on top of the enemy negative lightning res for Infinity will drop those specters to negative 100 lightning res, which means we're doing maximum damage to them. Mara's just good, 3 lightning ammy, you know, just use what you can that gives you damage and whatever survivability stats you want. Maybe FCR if you don't have it elsewhere. And then Spirit Monarch, which is just best in slot on pretty much every Sorceress. Not every single Sorceress, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard stuff. And then we have Call to Arms up in here. Call to Arms is really good. So we got Call to Arms with just giving us a ton of life and mana, and also giving us an extra skill. And of course, we're buffing it up by having a Spirit on swap. And then, honestly, if you need res here, get it. You don't need the MF once you get in here, but, you know, bonus MF is nice. If you can fit it places, get it, but it's not the priority for Arcane Sanctuary Farming. Doing that Arcane Power Farm and just farming it over and over, it's just not the priority. Stone of Jordan 1 and Stone of Jordan 2. Some more damage. One thing I should mention, though, is with this, I didn't mention Oculus, because Oculus will teleport you around. It'll bounce you around, which is not good, because then the ghosts will follow you, and then they'll follow you off the edge. You don't want to bounce around in here, so Oculus is a very bad weapon for Arcane Farming. It's kind of like the whole T-Storm thing, and it's also kind of like using Chain Lightning in situations where you're not sure where the ghosts are if they're not off the edge. Once again, you know, you can just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and kill them wherever you want, but the more ghosts you kill over the platforms, I feel like the more success you will have in this area. So then you have Arachnid's Mesh, which is a skill and 20 FCR. Very good. And then just damage. Res, bonus MF, some FHR to hit the 86 breakpoint in this case, and then of course an Annie and a Torch. So yeah, it's really good stuff overall. One thing to mention is that I actually don't have a full inventory of items. You'll notice I left 6 slots open. You could even leave 9 slots open. You could even leave like 12 or 16 slots open. And on LOD or on D2R, this is not a bad strategy because charms are constantly dropping in here. So are jewels and so are these things. These are things you're going to want to be picking up. And if you're crafting, you're also going to want to pick up gems and whatnot. The space in the cube is not enough. You will usually find more items in a single arcane run than you can pick up unless it's a one-way arcane run, which we'll go over once we start demoing her in a second. And yeah, you're going to run out of space, and usually you're going to want enough space to where after you leave the game and go and re-enter the game, you just ID it from Kane, and then you just resume and start farming another arcane run. You're just going to want to gun and go, put stuff in the stash that you need after you ID it from Kane, and then go back. You're not going to want to stop in the middle of your run, go ID things from Kane, and then go back into the run, and then do it again once the run ends. That's just inefficient. This is why I leave extra space. I'm leaving minimum extra space, honestly. Like, this is... If this fills up, I have to put things in my cube, which is already slower. So this is kind of just, you know, showing kind of like, all right, if you really want to max the damage, you can do this. And that's how we're able to hit 40k and whatnot. But yeah, you get the idea. So 40k lightning damage is a ton. You don't need anywhere near that, but we already talked about that, so it's good. Alright. So, we talked about the do's and don'ts and kind of what you're looking for on this kind of a build. And good stuff in general. So, let's go and do a demo run. So let's kind of show off what we're trying to do and what we're not trying to do. One thing to note here is that you can kill with a lightning character the monsters that are not specters, but specters have the special loot tables once again. The other monsters in here will drop armor and weapons, which means they're not as effective at dropping these items. Also, since Arcane is the 79 area, they're not going to drop you those ultra rare uniques either. They can drop things like storm shields and shakos though. Heck, you could even get a Towel's armor from an elite monster. There's definitely things they can drop in here that might surprise you, including like Nightwings and whatnot, but they are not the focus, because it's not efficient to farm them in here. You're trying to farm those runes, charms, gems, jewels, jewelry, and, you know, gems, and yeah, okay. That's what you're trying to do. That being said, if you have a lightning character, one of the main advantages of a lightning character in here, like my favorite build, which is this build, is that it kills everything. So even when you kill the ghosts, you'll also be slicing through the other monsters as well. Sometimes they also give you high runes. Sometimes they also give you sick items. They can give you all those same items, it's just that they don't have the best loot tables for them. So that collateral damage does add up though, and is really nice. Which is one of the reasons why I prefer the lightning type characters if you can. That being said though, there are definitely benefits to the other approaches. Alright, let's go. Lightning Sork 117 FCR demo is live. So as you can see here, mainly we're going to be shooting through them. Oh, got our ring. Any kind of specters we see, they're dead. Once again, you can kind of line them up with the other monsters if you want. You can pick up the gems if you want the gems. Alright, so as you can see, there's a Grand Charm. Use telekinesis to pop the chests and keep going. Depending on how accurate you want to be, these runs can take anywhere from 3 minutes-ish to 6 minutes-ish. Look at that. So there's an example of the other type of item I was saying they dropped. So right there, a ghost just dropped, a specter just dropped a co-rune. So co-rune's a pretty decent rune, actually. It's nothing too crazy, though. It's definitely not maybe what you're looking for yet, but it shows, though, that these specters drop a lot of runes. They really do. So in general, this is kind of just how you want to do it. You want to gather them, if possible, onto the platforms and kill them. Now, I have a lot of practice doing this. Obviously, you know, there's definitely a skill ceiling for this, for sure. Making sure there's somewhere on the platform is usually the key. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but like I said, though, you can also farm it a little bit differently. Yeah, so as you can see, we're picking up jewels. This is why having a lot of more space in your inventory might be nice. Alright. This is my preferred method of farming Arcane, though. See, there's a full rune off of a Spectre. See, they drop runes all the time. And you might be thinking, wouldn't pure monster density be better than this? Well, because of their insanely high rates of dropping these items, and as long as you have mobility and you're constantly killing them, this can easily stack up against or even exceed the rate of dropping these runes from cows And even areas like Travancore that have the benefits from the council members. Okay. So I think you guys kind of get the idea, but what I do is I do all 4 ways. And there's a couple reasons to do this. So if you do all 4 directions, if you choose to, you don't have to. But if you choose to do all 4 directions, you can usually line up pretty well with people farming Bale. So if you enter a full game solo and get that player count up, their Bale run will usually take maybe even less time than this, maybe a similar amount of time to this. But what I would do is just sit in here and farm until they're done, and then rejoin and then join the next game. And what I've noticed in a lot of cases, it lines up pretty well. And if it doesn't, you can always farm keys. You know, you can always do something else until they're finished. You can always like farm like T keys. You can farm ghosts in the tower. There's always good ways to do this, right? On single player, though, even on single player and on Valorant as well, one advantage is that of farming all 4 ways is that you're not constantly entering and rejoining games. That does waste a lot of time, and just going all 4 ways is just really nice to do that in general, just for that reason. One thing I should note is that the disadvantage of farming all 4 ways is that you have to farm all 4 directions, and not all the directions are as easy to farm. You might notice that there's the stair one, there's the one with the platforms, the pillars. Yeah, it gets kind of messy in some of these other directions, as you can see. Oh my goodness, I swear, muscle memory sometimes gets you really good.
Good day.
Okay. So, portals isn't necessarily super good either, but as you can see though, they drop tons and tons of these types of items I was talking about. You can kind of just see it. Like if I just go and just use my, like you can just see how many of these types of items are dropping, just tons of them. The runes, charms, gems, jewels, jewelry is just... It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And they really drop these things at an insane rate. I've never seen an area, or if you farm this area properly and efficiently, it's just super hard to get better than this. So now notice, these are the balconies, right? These are the pillars, the balconies, whatever you want to call it. This area can be tough sometimes because shooting between the pillars can be a bit of a problem. This one can be tough because there's just lots of stairs. And between the portals, they, you know, sometimes do weird stuff. There's just a lot of weird gaps. This direction is usually seen as the best one. We'll talk about why in a second. This one's the stairs, and the stairs, they're very thin, right? So if they end up over the stairs, that can be tough to kill them in the stair direction. Alright, so this is the flats. So if you're doing one-way Arcane, this is the one way you want to do. And if you have single player, you'll know which way that is every time. So every time you load up the game, you'll just be able to know exactly where it is. I'm playing on single player with random map generation, so it's actually different every time. But if you're playing normal single player, this is how it works. So the flats always have these traps. So they're also known as the traps, whatever. The traps, flats, same thing. And you'll notice on the flats that the ghosts are almost always on the platform when they start out. So this is the advantage of just farming the flats and doing what's called one-way Arcane farming. The disadvantage, though, is that sometimes you might not even get super chests because there's no summoner at all, but it's about the same rate as if you were farming for way Arcane anyway, so if not the exact same rate. It feels bad sometimes to run them like that, though. But as you can see, we still got our super chests. So we got the shielder. Hell Arcane is really good. One thing that I also get asked a lot about Arcane is Nightmare Arcane good? It's not as good for a couple of reasons. One, you can freeze the ghosts, which means they don't move over the platforms as well. They don't drop runes that are nearly as high. I think they can drop Rune, but for instance, they can't drop anywhere near Cham. So like, usually if you're a Nightmare, you want to do like Nightmare Cows, because Nightmare Cows is such a significantly higher area level than Nightmare Arcane. Whereas Hell Arcane is only 2 levels below Hell Cows, which means the only difference is Hell Cows can drop a Zod rune. But once again, cows don't have the odds of dropping these items that the ghosts do. They are more dense though, which you know, that has its own advantages. But if I keep entering the game like this though, and just find the flats over and over, even if I'm online or if I'm on random map single player like right now, you can look for the flats. There we go. They're in the same direction this time. That's just pure coincidence. Alright. So as you can see, one thing to also note is make sure to keep keys in your inventory. A lot of those super chests are locked super chests. And those locked chests, including other locked chests, if you want to pop them, require keys. Unless you're an assassin, and there actually is one assassin build we're going to go over. So for that build, you don't need keys. Alright, so as you can see, one-way Arcane is very fast, and you can keep reloading the game, and you can do that as well. The flats, as you noticed, I didn't have to gather the ghosts as much because the platforms are they're flat, they're straightforward, there's not thin stairs everywhere, there's not pillars, and there's not like weird gaps everywhere like in the teleport area. Alright, so, but you know, I also talked about the advantages of 4-way Arcane, so we kind of already went over that. You can do it either way, and either way is going to be very similar efficiency based on a lot of my time testing and whatnot. Very similar. It's possible that if you're on single player and you have fast reloading time, that the one-way can be more efficient by maybe like 5 or 10 seconds. But in a lot of other situations, it's just going to be a lot more efficient to farm the 4-way, as I've mentioned before. Alright, so one more thing though that we're going to want to do, we're going to want to show off real quick, is just a different method of farming it. So we're going to show off the fast farm method of Arcane. And for that, what we're going to do is we're going to mostly target ghosts, but I'm not going to worry as much about them being like on the platform. And if the ghosts are kind of in a weird area, I'm also not going to care about them too much. Okay, yeah. So as you can see, you can go faster for sure. Go as fast as you want. Of course, you can also still pick up the items that you're actually trying to farm for in the first place. And there you go. See, you can just go really fast. You don't have to worry about perfectionism. If it really bothers you that the ghosts drop over the edge, you can do my method for sure. And my method has the advantage that, you know, you're still killing a pretty similar amount of ghosts per hour, per minute on the actual platform, so. But, you know. One thing to note is the 200 FCR build actually definitely likes to farm this way, so when I go over the 200 FCR build here in a moment, it's very, very similar. One thing I should mention is this is a pretty sizable guide. It is. Like, I want to go over pretty much everything, because people ask all kinds of questions. about this area. So as you can see, the runes are dropping everywhere. They're not always going to be good runes, of course, but they're still very rare, just like in most areas. But because they're dropping so many runes, that's going to make it way more likely we get those really good runes. And of course, there are other advantages to farming Arcane that have nothing to do with all the other items I mentioned. Like, you can farm socket bases from the collateral damage. You can find the uniques, as we mentioned before, especially if you kill the uniques and the champion monsters. And as you see, as the lightning character, I can even choose to target the Hill Clans if I want. They're really dense, but most of the time, I wouldn't recommend doing that. You're mostly just trying to target the specters. But another type of item that you find all the time in here is H keys, so keys of hate. One advantage to farming Arcane is that if you're also wanting to farm Ubers, or you just want to sell H keys, you have one item you're pretty much guaranteed to find here and there, like all the time. Because you're also farming the Summoner. Whether you're farming one-way Arcane or four-way Arcane, you're going to be farming the Summoner quite a bit. So, it doesn't matter. Like I said, on D2R, you're going to have spread out loot, so this isn't as much of an issue on D2R. This is still pluggy. We are shooting this guide before we can play D2R. Before it's live. One thing to note is that you can't freeze the ghosts in Hell Arcane as well, which is actually an advantage. Even for cold builds too, which means you could also run Holy Freeze Mercenary if you wanted to instead of Might Aura, because they don't freeze. They cannot be frozen under any conditions, which is good. They can't be chilled or frozen or anything. So that's all good stuff. That's all good stuff, for sure. So you can actually do that. There are some other disadvantages to that, but yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. You can also do that if you want to. But as you can see, you can just walk up to Kane. Like, I was just, doing it manually just to show you if you ran out of room in Arcane, you can start IDing stuff randomly. But as you can see, I can just start stacking these types of items and it's no problem, right? I don't need full rune though. That rune's a tiny rune. I mean, unless you're crafting, but you can generate crafting materials and they're like nothing. Some people really like cows, and cows are good for crafting materials, but I'll be honest, after farming cows efficiently in Arcane, nothing generates crafting materials faster in Arcane. Nothing generates charms faster. Rune efficiency is similar in some areas, and even lower for like Sur runes specifically, like compared to like LK super chests, for instance. But it's higher on a lot of other runes like Ohms and Lows, because this can drop from super chests in Act 2 pretty commonly. And they don't drop as often from the chests in Act 3. It's that prime spot for runes for Act 2 from the super chests. So yeah, it just depends, of course. But then, of course, Jaws can even drop from the ghosts in here, whereas you can't even get Jaws or Chams. There's not even a chance from the lower cross super chests. And of course, you can get burrs even more frequently. I would argue in Arcane as well. So there's a lot of really big advantages to farming Arcane, of course, just in general. All right, so I've kind of showed different ways you can farm this area. You can farm quicker, not as quick, whatever. And I've kind of like explained all kinds of different things regarding to how to farm it efficiently. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move to some different setups and show you guys how you can use other types of builds. This is my favorite setup. This is setup number 1. This is the setup that I would recommend 9 times out of 10. As long as you have something that's approximating the setup here, it's going to be a really, really good life for you. Farming Arcane. Alright, so kind of just gonna move all this crap here. So that we can gear up our next character. Alright, that should be good. And now let's go over to the 200 FCR Lightning Sorceress. That's right, 200 FCR. So, that was 117. 117 has more damage, it's easier to stack survivability, but it doesn't move as quickly. That being said, though, because it can take more lightning strikes to kill the monsters on a 200 FCR build, it's arguable whether this is even faster, but some people really like going fast, and the efficiency I've tested seems like it could be faster overall. It's really hard to say, though, because I've done like a lot of different things, and it was really close. It was really close. Like it kind of just depends on like what else you're doing, to be honest. All right, so not that one now. Ah. Okay. Alright, so as you can see, res is definitely not insanely ideal on this character. But still have a rep HR and whatnot. So the key is this right here, is the 200 FCR. That is the
I'll put that to good use.
guaranteed
I'll put that to good use.
thing that you
I'll put that to good use.
absolutely need. Alright, so we have a 200 FCR Lightning Sorceress. Let's go over the differences here. So as you can see, our damage is a little lower. It's not hugely lower, but it is a little lower. You can definitely get a lot of damage, though, on a 200 FCR Lightning Sorceress. It's about 5k lower. I don't know. It's like 4-ish K. It does make a little bit of a difference, but it's not that big. Especially considering that you could also put in more lightning facets, but that wouldn't matter if you have griffins anyway, actually. Yeah, never mind, because we're already dropping to negative 100. Alright, forget what I just said. Forget what I said. That wasn't important. Alright, anyway, I'm just thinking out loud. Alright. Bad thinking. Bad thinking. Notice, though, our survivability is significantly lower. We have 400 less life, and we have... It's hard to stack res. I mean, we can get maybe a couple more runes. We could even put an rune in here if we don't want the percent damage, the percent lightning damage. There's a lot of things we can do. That being said, though, this build is insanely fast at teleporting. Arguably, this is the most efficient lightning sword overall. I don't know if I really prefer it, though. This is maybe my second most preferred build. And like I said, it's because a lot of the time I'll find myself dying on this character quite a bit. It's just hard to keep, like... It's hard to put as much res on. It's hard to maintain your mana. I mean, I have some mana life charms here instead of res, so you can definitely shore up your res a bit more. It's just more challenging to do so. And one thing to also note is it's more challenging to stack Magic Find on this version of the build as well. And even though I said it doesn't matter for most items, that will matter for finding like a Stone of Jordan or a BK Ring or a Geed's Fortune and a lot of other types of items like rare rings. So it's going to matter. It will matter quite a bit. Not a ton, but it will matter a little bit. 250 MF is like an insanely solid amount because of the way diminishing returns work on MF in this game. And 119 is still kind of okay. So it's, even if you're looking for those types of items, it's fine. And the rest of the items you're looking for in Arcane are not affected whatsoever. So yeah. Alright, so let's start going over the stats and whatnot. So it's the same thing as the other Lightning Sorceress. Enough strength to wear your gear, max vitality. Res, get whatever you can. MF is going to be a bit lower, but that's okay. 200 FCR, that is the key. It's a insanely fast Sorceress. 86 FHR. That's, once again, hitting that ideal FHR, so that's actually something good we can do, as long as we get some really nice skillers, but Otherwise, it might be a little difficult. So you'll be even more likely to die if you don't have 86 FHR, because this build's just not as tanky. We also don't have life per kill, and there's a lot of things the other build has this one just simply doesn't. Alright, as you can see though, we don't even have any damage reduction, so we don't even have the Enigma damage reduction like on the other build. We don't have Chains of Honor, we don't got nothing, because we need FCR. So, it's a bit squishy. It's squishy. It's very squishy, but that's okay. Skills are identical to the other version of the build. Once again, we don't need Thunderstorm, and make sure you have Teleport. You just max out Lightning Mastery and all of the lightning synergies, and 1 point Frozen Armor and Warmth. For gear, once again, identical, Infinity, Fortitude, and Indarl's Visage. And we have a little bit more emphasis on damage here, so I'm using the Ashitas just to show Ashitas is a good one as well. Could still use the Hodo, but I don't know. It's hard to get damage on this version of the build too, so I'm kind of prioritizing damage. Damage is really a priority for efficiency in here, so because we're lacking damage from other sources, as you can see from our overall damage difference, with a very similar inventory setup and everything else, I really want to focus on that damage on this build because it's already lacking a bit. And then of course the Lightning Ormus, which is really nice, but you don't necessarily need that. You could use like Viper Magi on a 200 FCR. Griffith is pretty much a must on the 200 FCR for a Lightning 200 FCR. Pretty much not going to get away with that. A lot of FCR on the Amulet, also need FCR on the Amulet most likely, at least 10. This is the best thing I have on my pluggy, like a 220 would be awesome. Spirit is mandatory. Call to Arms, Spirit, once again. This is how I'm getting just some res. I'm not using War Travs, as you might note on this build, because I need res. Desperate for res. If you're really desperate for cold res, even you can wear Train Gloves, but you need some 20 FCR gloves, like Mage Fist or Train Gloves on this build. And you need 10 FCR on the rings. Res is good. Yeah. Right, as a mesh, also mandatory. Just once again, MF, res, mana, life, whatever you think's going to help you survive on this build, honestly. Kind of tougher, but yeah. Alright, here we go. That's it. That's the gear. It's the same stuff as the other Sorceress. Alright, so let's do a demo. Show you guys how she's running. We're going to go fast on her, so I'm going to kind of shirk accuracy quite a bit. And we can always use telekinesis to pick up potions, especially mana potions from the ghosts. Yeah, as you can see, you notice I'm taking a lot more damage, even just from random monsters. This is why this is my second favorite build. And I know it's really fun to go fast, and it's really efficient. As a fast build. And I'd recommend using, definitely having those health potions in that slot there. Because, yeah. It's gonna be painful otherwise. Alright, that's a lot of ghosts, so I'll slow down for that. They're all over the edge. Jeez. Yeah, these full students aren't cutting it. You can see all the runes, charms, gems, and jewels dropping off the ghosts. Dropping some super chests. Because we don't have life per kill, you can notice though, we constantly need health potions too. So this build will slow you down in other ways that are completely unrelated to the FCR. In terms of the FCR, this build is blazing fast. Blazing fun, blazing fast. But as you can see, it struggles a bit in some other categories. And it has to. We can't use Enigma, we're not getting 200 FCR. Can't use Chains of Honor just to have more tankiness. Or Viper Magi. We could use Viper Magi, but once again our damage will go even down further. And once again, we are already lacking some damage. You might notice that sometimes we're not one-shotting as many monsters as we were before, because now the damage range is a bit more constricted. It'd be really nice to get like a high ring in the demo, but on average it will take, as my data set shows, about somewhere between 1 in 40 and 1 to 50 runs to do that. And when we're talking 50 runs, we're talking 4-way runs, so yeah, and that's pretty good. I mean, that's really good for this game, but okay. As you can see, though, can skip them all, stragglers, doesn't matter. Yeah, see, this is the struggle of not having auto gold pickup and spread out loot, like on D2R. But, you know, that's okay. D2R is going to be even better than this, so this farm's going to be even more efficient on D2R, even without loot filters. Just the facts. Alright, here we go. Charms. Alright, so ooh, well, there you go. I mean, there's an example of something Arcane's really good at. Charms. Small charms. That is an almost perfect mana small charm with 13 life on top of it. Very similar to the charms I'm actually using right now. So as you can see, very sick drop right there. Very sick drop. Okay. Alright, so that's a pretty good demo of what this character does. I think you guys kind of get the idea of this one. Really cool stuff in general. Trying to think of what do we actually need here in order to complete. All right. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of really good items and whatnot on here. So that's all really good stuff. This character is a beast for sure, but the key is 200 FCR, and it's a lot of fun to run a 200 FCR Sorc. So number 2 is the 200 FCR Lightning Sorceress. Very beastly character for sure for running Arcane Sanctuary. So as you can see, Lightning Sorceresses definitely run the ground game really well in Arcane, and overall, I would say they're the best builds. Period. Well, let's go into a different kind of sorceress that does not use lightning. And let's talk about a really expensive version of doing this and not an expensive version of doing this, just to kind of show that this build in some ways has a bit more flexibility. Alright, so once again, 200 FCR. Yep, you guessed it, and if you didn't guess it, should have known it was coming. 200 FCR. But this character is going to be using a different kind of attack. This character is all about one thing. Fireball. Blasting them straight mansion into oblivion. Fireball. So on this build, let me see something here. What's my FHR currently? Okay, so that's not insanely ideal. We'll put on FHR Charm. This build, honestly, this particular build is actually pretty easy to get. Pretty easy to get max res on. All right, so this should be correct, or it should at least approximate something that is correct. Oh, nope, not yet. Oops. C daisy. Alright.
I'll put that to good use.
Alright, so here we go. Next up, 200 FCR Fireball Sorceress. So Fireball is definitely one of the best skills in Arcane Sanctuary for Arcane Sanctuary Farming. Once again, we have a Sorceress and we have insanely fast teleport frames. Mobility is a key. Like I said, you can even do a Blizzard Sorc in here if you want, as long as you have really high cold mastery or negative enemy cold res, because the ghosts have 70 cold res in Arcane Sanctuary. So in order to get them to negative 100, And to do a lot of damage to them with Blizzard, you need very high negative cold res. But it's a little clunky because of cooldowns, and Ice Blast only hits one ghost at a time, so it's a little clunkier. This is why I prefer Fireball. If you're not going to go Lightning, and you want to go an element that's not Lightning, even though there's no Lightning immunes in Arcane, and the Spectres have no Lightning resistance, the Spectres also don't have Fire resistance, which makes Fire one of the best elements for farming this area. So, let's go over how to build this character. So once again, as much strength as you need to wear your gear, as much fight, then put the rest into vitality. That's it. Unless once again you're playing hardcore, you're gonna be going like max block, storm shield. You know, there's definitely other options for hardcore, and then making sure you're safe in hardcore. Get damage reduction. You know, take a hit on your FCR, go down to 105 FCR. You can even use Phoenix as well, which Phoenix is safer as well because of the Redemption aura, and Phoenix also has negative enemy fire res, but it won't get you to 200 FCR, so there's a lot of other options, of course, but we're going to be going over what I think is like an insanely efficient build in here, though. This build, in some ways, you can argue is more efficient for just farming the Spectres, but it's really bad at the collateral damage. And that kind of hurts, because it's a lot of other monsters you're killing, and even though they don't have as great of loot tails necessarily, it can affect your overall farming efficiency. This is why this is my third preferred build, and not my first. It might be arguably it might edge out the Lightning Sorceress at killing just the Spectres and opening the chest, though, which is something that, you know, I'm going to demo here in a moment. Anyway, we have 215 MF once again. MF doesn't matter for farming those key items, but it helps to farm those unique and set items, particularly the unique jewelry and things of that nature, and the rare jewelry. Alright, we have 200 FCR, once again, that's the name of the game. High mobility, high damage. We've got 60 FHR, which is one of those breakpoints I was talking about earlier, which is just fine. And then, basically it. We don't have any damage reduction on this build either, so we're also going to be taking a lot of damage on this build. This is why if you go 105 FCR with Phoenix, 105 FCR on Fireball, or 117 on Lightning, which is the breakpoint for Lightning, those builds tend to be tankier, they are more reliable in terms of surviving, and because of all that, they tend to make up for efficiency in ways that they'd be losing by not having that 200 FCR. They make up for that lack of 200 FCR or teleport speed in other ways. So it's not as big of a deal as you might think to get that 200 FCR. But that being said, these builds are very, very efficient. Alright, so that's it for the stats. Skills, teleport. You can get one to static field. You don't even actually need it, to be honest. One frozen armor, one warmth, and then the rest goes into Fireball, synergies, and Fire Mastery. And then notice how on this build I don't even use the rest of my skill points, even though I'm level 96 on this character, because we don't need them. We're just using fire, and that's really the only thing you should want to use in here. If you really want another source of damage for fun, you can go into like Frozen Orb or something, go Orb Baller, and that's, you know, it works just fine. Or like Blizz Baller. Do what you want overall, but you don't even need the points. You don't need it. And of course for gear, Ashuta's just maxing out that fire damage, high FCR damage, FCR. You can also go Ormus once again here. Because Fireball does so much minimum and maximum damage though, unlike Lightning, which can do 1 damage sometimes, the damage isn't as big of an issue with Fireball. So survivability plus teleport speed is really more important than the actual Fireball damage when you're trying to prioritize gear options here. 220 Circlet, very sick for sure. Getting that FCR up can be very tough for this kind of character, and since we don't want to use Griffins, because Griffins is for a Lightning character. You can use Griffins if that's all you have, but this gives us 2 skills, so this is more damage, right? It even gives us some flat DR. And then 215 combined with this, you know, gets us to another 50 FCR. Just as much FCR and skills as you can really pile on. Mage Fist is pretty much just best in slot, period, because it gives you a fire skill and FCR. And then just FCR and rings. And boots, once again, res and MF, not only going for, you can go war traps, of course, just fine. Arachnid's mesh is required. Call to arms and spirit on swap. All this stuff is really good. And then, of course, res, MF, and then notice here I am using really nice skillers because I found really nice skillers on my single player pluggy here, so that's really good. That's good stuff. And then just getting that FHR up to 60 and then using a torch and an Annie like normal. And a Geeds just to boost the MF more for fun. And of course, just like all the other characters that you're going to want to farm Arcane with, Infinity, and ideally Darl's Visage and Fortitude, but not needed. Just the Infinity is the important thing for maximum damage. Now, we're also going to show a much more budget version of this character, just to show that in player 7 here, which is what we're always going to want to be farming and how I've been farming in all these builds. In player 7, you can run a very budget fireballer in here, and it will actually be pretty darn effective. So if you don't have Infinity, you don't have Griffins, and you don't have some of those higher end lightning items, Fireball might actually be the go-to for you. It might be what you're actually looking for. It might be like the key build. And we'll show that off in here in a moment. First, without further ado, build number 3. Wait, you know what? Screw it. Let's just do it this way. Okay. There we go. Screw it! Alright, so as you can see, you know, sometimes it can still give you trouble. Notice though that these Hell Clans are going to get in your way though. They are fire immune, and unless you have Phoenix, and you're using the 105 setup, it's a bit of problematic. Also, I don't have keys on this character. What did I do? Dang it, I didn't stack keys. Well, okay, you get the idea. Normally you want to open the super chest. Remember to keep a key in your inventory. Buy keys if you run out. See, as you can see, the disadvantage of this build, Fireball in general, is that you get body blocked by the Hell Clans. But the advantage is that it's really just one-shot, just insta-kills of these ghost packs. Just absolute... Alright, you know what? Let's... Give me a key. Okay, thank you. Alright. Alright, so... Ghosts are still dropping all of their awesome items. Dropping rune after rune after rune right now. Okay. Hope I'm not making anyone nervous by having the health drop right now. Don't worry, this is not hardcore. This is not at the moment. You don't want to do that in hardcore. Make sure your health never drops below half, man. If it does, instantly heal it. Should be making sure health is always above 75% anyway for the most part in hardcore. So yeah, notice how the goats can get blocked sometimes by the Hell Clans. That's not good. But notice that I can just tele-stomp these ghost packs and I can go to town. It's really fast. Like, really fast. Okay. Fireball is just really smooth. One thing about lightning though is that even if the goats aren't bunched up and they're like in a line, these paths are like the perfect width for lightning. So in some regards with Fireball, you'll notice, okay, I should open that chest, but that's okay. And sometimes it would be easier just to use lightning because the ghosts are like spread out. Like kind of like right here. Well, no, those two were close enough, but... So this is the top 3 build here. This is a really fast build. Alright, so good stuff. Good stuff. 100%. Alright. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to greatly diminish our power here. So on purpose, I'm actually not going to remove the anteater torch, so I'm going to simulate having some plus skills, I guess, down here. Yeah, so... Let's see. Alright, so Mercenary, we're actually going to take off as Infinity. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go... I'm going to lower my damage significantly just to show you guys that Fireball is beastly in here.
I'll put that to good use.
So even without all of this awesome stuff,
I'll put that to good use.
which is always going to be awesome, of course. Even without all these crazy good items, we can even take off a lot of the other stuff. You know, we can still use Mage Fist, I guess. Just to illustrate this point. We're going to use Lore, Stealth, Spirit, and then of course we're going to use a Spirit Monitor, because that's not too hard to get. And I guess I'll simulate having another skill somewhere else. Okay, so let's say you... Let's say you drop your skill count significantly, okay? Now we're looking at something that's pretty janky. So now we only have like 7,000, somewhere between like maybe 5,000 and 7,000 damage. Or actually, no, we have like 9,000. Okay, my bad. So somewhere like 7,000 to 9,000 damage is kind of what this is simulating right here. And as long as you get like a decent enough level, you can do this just fine. Once again, we're using Insight, so we're using some like a really basic setup. I definitely have these in some of my like budget starter builds and some of my guides on max roll. It's pretty normal stuff. Yeah, so we're using like pretty much, you know, I'm not even going to use jewelry, I don't think. Yeah, I'm not even going to use jewelry. I'm just going to leave it off. I have plenty of FCR. I actually have overstacked. I'm going to have 105 FCR though, because once again, I don't really recommend going below 105 here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go farm Arcane proper. So we're going to go farm Arcane with this really
Can I take you?
bare bones build. So we got gear that's, you know, obviously just ignore for a second this is an Arachnid's Mesh. Ignore we have Torch and Annie. Just pretend these are like, I don't know, like a random +2 Ami or like a couple of random skillers. And of course, pretend that this res is maybe being put on like rings or something instead of like on the Torch and the Annie. So this build is kind of trying to simulate like low level gear power. That's the idea. All right, here we go. Bear with me. So notice right there that, you know, our res is definitely crushier for sure. Notice there though, I'm still able to kill the ghosts in P7. Like 2 or 3 shots. 3 shots I would say is more standard overall. Ow. Okay, well. I think you get the idea though. Is that like, even if you don't have good gear, you can actually do this farm with trash here. The Arcane Power Farm. That's what I call it. As you can see though, it will take longer, so it's not... The kills aren't quite as quick, but... unlike low-level lightning damage, lightning can be very inconsistent because of the minimum damage on it. So if you don't have good lightning gear, this might be the way to go. Notice that I am two-shotting the ghosts in pretty much all situations. Maybe three-shotting in some cases. So maybe with a little more damage, that two-shot becomes a little bit easier. If not, it's pretty much guaranteed three-shot, even if I lose some plus skills off of this build. But this is still player 7, so we're still farming an optimal player count for farming this gear. Now, notice the mercenary is surviving, but he's also struggling a little bit. And also another thing to notice is that right now I have a lot of hit recovery, so that's something I have going for me. Double Spirit is really good for hit recovery. And so is stealth, so. Matter of fact, I think if you get just 5, if I got 2 more hit recovery actually, which I should have. Yeah, if I put on another FE charge arm, any FE charge arm whatsoever, I'd actually have a 142 FHR, which is actually pretty easy to get with like easy gear. That could help you out quite a bit, so I'm not doing it right now, but it is something to note. The damage here is definitely lower, resistance is lower. You still need 156 strength though, so that's pretty similar. Alright, so as you can see, it can be a little bit of a pain sometimes. Make sure you don't get caught out. So once again, 142 FHR would be kind of nice for this. If you get amped, be very, very careful. This build's very fragile. Now, of course, if you have Barb Bow in your game, even if you don't have FCR, you're going to be really safe doing this. Even on hardcore, you're going to be pretty safe. So if you can get some like Barb Bowbot action going on here, it'd be nice and set. But notice that we even have way too much FCR, which is why we don't even need the Arachne's Mesh. That's what I was saying. You don't need any of that. You're perfectly fine. So you can definitely farm Arcane with a really cheap Fireball Sorceress. Just pretty freaking cool, right? I think it's cool. So when people ask me what build do I recommend for having no gear, I prefer this one. Lizard is also an option, and so is Weak Lightning, but lightning, at least Weak Lightning will give you collateral damage, and then you don't have to worry about body blocking as much in the Hell Clans. There are advantages to the other approaches, but you can start farming this area pretty soon now. There's not much to it. Not much to it at all. Make sure you have those potions in your belt though. And your keys, which you don't have currently. Rip. Alright, anyway. There you go, 105 FCR Fireball with really janky gear. Hope you guys enjoyed that demo or learned something from it, or maybe you're a bit more confident in this build. Once again, overall the Fireball Sorc is my third choice, but for budget it's my first choice. So keep that in mind. This is the choice build in my opinion. If you're trying to run that, absolutely, 100%. Alright, let's put the fire GCs back in here. I don't know why we even have them in here. Whatever, okay. GG guys, GG. Alright, so next up, we are going to go to my fourth build, and arguably a build that some people might even say is the best for at least one-way arcane farming, because your teleport speed isn't as high, but you absolutely eviscerate everything. So I'm actually going to demo her in what I think is her best type of farming scenario. And that is not a sorceress at all. So now we're going into some non-sorceresses. We're wondering, are there other builds that can farm this area efficiently? Yes, there are.
Hello.
But there are not many. Most of the time, like I said, you want to stick to other rune farming areas if you are not... if you don't have that high mobility and high damage, lightning or fire damage specifically. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, though, at the end of the day. Did I put everything back? Everything that I need to, I think, so yes. Alright, so next up is, well, I don't know if you guessed it, but I don't know if you even thought this could be a thing. Lightning Javazon. Lightning Javazon, is overall, out of the two builds that I've created on Max Roll, my second favorite Max Roll build for farming Arcane. And you can farm it without teleport, to be fair, because you have lightning damage and you have a ton of it. And this area has no lightning immunes. So you can definitely do that on a budget, no doubt. We're not going to demo that, though. We're going to demo how to do it fast with this character, though. This character has a lot of key advantages when it comes to farming Arcane. And for me, like I said, she's my fourth pick. She's very, very solid. But yeah, you can stack the charms. We already have enough FHR without any FHR charms whatsoever. Alright, so that's good enough, I think, and
I'll put that to good use.
we'll use this other infinity we have here. Alright, so let's go over her stats and gear and whatnot. So this is a 99 faster cast rate FCR Javazon. So this is the high mobility variant, basically, that is shown on my Max Roll Lightning Fury guide. Pretty much the exact same setup, except for, you know, having some extra space in the inventory. Alright. So. Oh yeah, let's start with stats, sorry. Enough strength to wear your gear. Check. Dex. Enough to wear your gear, which in this case Titans is pretty expensive in that regard. Check. Vitality. The rest of it. None into energy. You don't need it. You can put some into energy if you want, actually. Actually, I should say you can. If you don't have enough mana on your gear and you really just want that mobility and you don't want to slow down, especially if you're doing 4-way, you can do it, but I wouldn't recommend it for most part. Alright. Arcane farming, res, not amazing, but res isn't going to be a huge factor overall. Just make sure you have some res. Res is not going to be the most important thing on this build, however. Alright. And then, of course, one thing to note is that our damage is very high. Once again, it's all about high damage and mobility. MF. Alright, pretty similar, honestly, to that first build we showed off. My favorite Lightning Sorceress for it. And then, of course, we have 99 FCR as a breakpoint. We have exactly 100, so that's just over 99 there. Attack speed is at 35. Getting 99 FCR on an Amazon is pretty challenging. In order to do that with a Titans and to not have to repair Thunderstrokes, you could do a Thunderstrokes approach. There's other approaches you can use as well. You can actually take off the Raven Frost and have no cannot be frozen. You can put another FCR ring here, and then you can have 99 FCR, and you can still have High Lords, and then you can still hit the 52 attack speed breakpoint. You could do that. I would just recommend you have at least 32 attack speed on this build. I wouldn't focus too much on the... it's okay to lose a little bit of attack speed. It's mostly about that teleport speed. 52 FHR, check. We're good. That's Spirit. And just have the DR from Enigma. Okay, so once again, if you're going to run a non-sorceress in Arcane, I would recommend Enigma. You could do early game Javazon, but because you can't reposition, repositioning is really key as well to gathering the ghosts and making sure they don't fly off the edge. Otherwise, you have to wait a while. It's really clunky without the repositioning. You have to trust me on this. If you try any build in here, make sure you have teleport. Teleport's really important. Okay. I really don't recommend it without it. I really don't. Alright, next up is the skills. So we're literally just getting Lightning Fury and synergies. We're just using Lightning Fury. That's all we care about. Getting Pierce as well. I put a lot of extra points into Pierce so that we have 90 Pierce chance. And Pierce chance is also a struggle on the 99 FCR Amazon. So just want to make sure you have a lot of Pierce. I could have put the rest of them into the Lightning Bolt synergy, and in 2 more levels, you know, I could put more points into there if I want, but it's kind of up to you. Anywhere between like 80 to 90 Pierce and or 82 to 90 Pierce, I should say, because 82 is pretty easy to get, and just make sure you have as many into the rest of the synergy as possible, and that's it. That's all you want to do. And then for gear, Mercenary is still wearing that Infinity, just of some kind. Fortitude and Darl's Visage. These are different ones. Of course, I have multiples of some of these items, so that's kind of neat on my plugin quest that we did. And we completed. And there we go. So, Titans is definitely going to be best in slot no matter what. It doesn't have to be ethereal. Matter of fact, it doesn't matter much because you're not leeching off of the ghosts much anyway. You can leech off the other monsters, but it doesn't matter much. Just get some kind of Titans for that replenish life, replenish stack size, and replenish quantity. Enigma is 100% the way to go. You need that teleport. Griffin's also the way to go. It's the only way to really get 99 FCR while maintaining high damage with that enemy negative light res and the Infinity combined, getting those ghosts to negative 100 light res. And then this is for teleport speed. It's also giving us skills and mana though, and MF, so that's a nice Amy. You can use High Lords, like I said, and they use 2 10 FCR rings, but then you have to contend with the fact that you might get frozen sometimes. Raven Frost is kind of an optional thing there, but you know, do what you can. Spirit mandatory for 99 FCR. Call to Arms, Spirit on swap, pretty standard stuff for boosting that Call to Arms. War Traps, just MF. I could put Res. Honestly, Res Boots would be a pretty solid idea on this build, given that I don't have Res, but it's okay. We need attack speed wherever we can get it. We have a jewel here, and we have a attack speed gloves. We need attack speed. 320 gloves would be arguably better, but we don't have them on here. And Mana Leech wherever you can get it. Definitely try to get some source of Mana Leech. It's not going to matter for the ghost, but it's going to matter for the other monsters around it. So we'll help you maintain your teleport and maintain your mana pool. And then, you know, FCR for the teleport speed and everything else, the 99 FCR. Radiance Mesh is also mandatory for 99 FCR. And we need put some damage charms in there. You can put Res and MF if you want. Lightning Fury does so much damage that it's not a huge priority to get damage, but damage doesn't hurt when you're farming in an area where MF doesn't matter all that much. And of course, getting that Res and everything. Alright. GG. I think I went over all the relevant aspects of this build here. And now, without further ado, let's find the flats. So, if you're farming single player, or you know where the flats are, or you just want to find the flats, this character destroys the flats. Because this character doesn't have the crazy teleport speed. Even with 99 FCR, she's so much slower than a Sorceress. But she hits like a truck. And so, what we can do is we can use the flats where the ghosts don't usually fly off the edge, and we can use that to our advantage to just blow up the flats. So we can just go like here. There's a Fowler, nice. And, wow. Fowler, highest win so far, huh? Not bad. Another Fowler. Like I said, Arcane's showing something of what it's capable of there, but it's still not a crazy rune yet. Nope. That's okay though. We have the data for a reason. Once again, we'll be posting that data. There's a Geed's Fortune, so that's one of the items that this area specializes in right here. Let's drop that. Let's ID it. Let's see what we get here. 40? Wow, 39. I think I'll just keep the 40. I don't think I need the 39. That's fine. That was pretty cool though. As you can see though, the 100 FCR, we're moving fast. And one advantage of Lightning Fury is that not just of the ghosts, you can clear even the random monsters in here as well. So if I can even have an extra Titans in the queue, of course, to swap out in case we start running out of dirt quantity on one of them. Or you could even have it in your inventory if you want to make more inventory space. Okay, so once again, let's just show her one more time. Look how fast she is, man. Very good build here. Very good build. One disadvantage is that you don't have telekinesis to hit the super chest, but that's okay. You have enough teleport speed to where it's fine. Alright, so as you can see, nothing survives, and the collateral damage on the Javazon is amazing. It's incredible. So you're gonna kill everything when you kill the ghost with this, with the Javazon. You can still focus the ghost, but on this character, she does so much damage that you can honestly kill any major pack along the way, in addition to the ghosts, and it's gonna be pretty darn efficient for farming those runes, charms, gems, jewels, and everything else. So as you can see, the Lightning Fury Amazon with 99 FCR is a really good choice here. And early game, if you don't mind not being able to reposition very well, you could also try to farm her. I'd recommend farming cows with her though, if you don't have the teleport. If you don't have the teleport, just stick to cows. Cows are the most efficient rune farm on a Javazon, period. Before 99 FCR. And at 99 FCR, it's, well, it depends. One way Arcane or cows, it's whatever you want to do. So before, this is why I didn't show the budget version of this character, because I don't really feel like that's what you want to do. You want to do cows if possible. You can, but it's not necessarily the most efficient method. Okay. Now that's out of the way, we have one more build, which is my 5th choice. 5th and final build for you guys for this monstrosity of a character. Oh yeah, I guess we really didn't put that much on her. She has, yeah, she's got most of her own gear. Okay. Cool. Alright, Asphyxiate. Alright, so level 96. My 5th top build for farming Arcane. You know, like I said, you know, you can argue maybe Blizzard Sork is still in there and whatnot, or Orb Sork. You could put those in the top 5 spot as well. And like I said, you know, it's just you have to have a lot of negative cold res to make those work. But I would much prefer Fireball or Lightning every time. And then you can't even kill the Ghoul Lords with Orb as well, so there's other problems with that and Blizzard and whatnot. But you can do that. It's arguable you could put them in the 5th spot. You know, I also talked about Dream Paladin. Dream Paladin would actually be pretty fast, but it would kill a lot of the ghosts off the edge with the Holy Shock Aura. So as far as I'm concerned, and also because it's a little clunkier, because it's a melee build and whatnot, and you have to, like, it can be harder to get on them. His teleport speed isn't insanely high either. You can put those maybe in the top, like, 8 or whatnot, top 7. You can definitely put these other builds in here, but my choice for top 5 is this one. Fire Blast Assassin. Fire Blast Assassin, in a lot of ways, is a tankier, more reliable Fireball Sorceress, except a slower Fireball Sorceress. So she can get tankier, and you can also use her. There are a few advantages to farming Arcane with this character, and we'll go into them in a moment here. So this character is, I think, in a lot of ways
I'll put that to good use.
underestimated. So Fire Blast Assassin in a lot of ways is also just a standard Lightning Sentry Trap Assassin. So one of the advantages here is you don't have to go a build that's bad for farming everything else. You can literally just farm this, and then you can go and farm Bale if you want to, or do anything else. This build is just solid for farming everything in the game, but it also does a really good job farming Arcane Sanctuary.
I'll put that to good use.
So it really has that jack of all trades thing going on, and it's not insanely limited, which is really the key. Okay, so our res is not insane, but I think we get the idea. 108 FCR. Okay, yeah, I think. All right, so let's talk about this character. So this is my 5th choice. If you have an assassin, this is pretty effective. Now you might be asking to our community, why not use Lightning Sentry? Well, it's kind of similar to Thunderstorm or Holy Shock. It kills the ghosts off the edge way too often. And in the case of traps, you can't even control them. So unless you gather them on the platform and then put down the traps and then wait for the traps to kill them, which takes a long time, I don't recommend Lightning Sentry in here. It's just, there are lightning builds that you would think should work pretty well, but the mechanics and the skills don't really make it that good of an option. But as for an assassin, Fire Blast is perfect. Fire Blast takes all the synergies from Lightning Sentry as well, so it's really, really ideal for this. So let's talk about the Fire Blast Assassin, which is my 5th choice. We have 156 strength, so we're maxing out, putting enough strength in to where our Phoenix, in this case, they have the rest of the points into Vitality, so just enough to wear your gear and the rest into Vitality, just like on all the rest of these Arcane builds. And then as much res as you can possibly muster, and on hardcore, make sure to max those res. MF is about 250 once again, 261. Not required for finding those types of items, however. And then, of course, we have 108 FCR. 102 is the breakpoint, so we just need 102 FCR. 102 FCR with Phoenix is ideal. You don't necessarily even need a Phoenix, but Phoenix definitely helps a little bit. It also helps with sustain, so it helps with the getting that negative enemy res, fire res, at a negative 100 for the ghosts, so it's really solid. And then, of course, FHR, we don't have any on this build, which is honestly not great. I would think you'd probably want at least like 15, so try to get like 15 if you can. I'm not going to demo it with 15, but I guess this is the reason you use Spirit as well, right? Because you can do that. And then, right, yeah, so the rest of this is just pretty standard stuff. And then we have the DR from Enigma. Once again, we need Enigma for teleport. 102 FCR, I would say, is a requirement. You really want that teleport speed. And damage. So skills. Let's go over the skills real quick. Once again, make sure your burst of speed is at least level 16. Otherwise, they're not going to be throwing those traps as fast as you're going to want to be. You know, at least level 16 burst of speed. It's at least according to the attack speed calculator. So you need a level 16. I have 18, which is just fine. You're gonna trap throwing speed, including Fire Blast, is based on attack speed. It's kind of strange, I know. It's not cast speed. So this is actually going to be based on your attack speed. But as long as you have burst of speed, you're fine. You don't have to worry about attack speed on your gear. If you don't have this level burst of speed, then get attack speed on your gear. As you can see, though, we're going to be throwing Fire Blast. This is going to be our main skill for farming Arcane. And as you can see, at 102 FCR, we have the faster cast rate for teleporting. That's all we need. Alright, and then, honestly, I wouldn't even get these, to be honest. I just have them on this character because it's just a generic lightning trap assassin. I'd save these points for leveling up some extra fire blast synergies, putting them into like Wake of Fire or Wake of Inferno if you can. That's what I would do personally. And then all the rest of your skills in this build literally just go into Fire Blast and then the synergies, which literally you can have the exact same synergies for Death Sentry and Lightning Sentry as for Fire Blast. So yes, you can. It doesn't have to be just a Fire Blast Sin. You can be a Lightning Trap Sin at the same time, which makes this build very versatile. And it's very good at farming Arcane, so it's not a bad choice in any case. And that's all you gotta do. And then, like I said, you can put the rest of your points into these synergies, and then you can make your Fire Blast stronger. It won't help these skills, but it'll make Fire Blast stronger. Alright. And then as for gear, once again, same thing on the Mercenary. Infinity is still best slot. Need that negative enemy fire res that the Conviction Aura provides. Just like you need the negative lightning res that it also provides for the lightning characters, and so on. Ghosts, once again, don't have any fire res, so once again, this is a fire damage build. Does very well. If you want to kill collateral damage, you could even switch to Lightning Sentry. So on this character, you have an option of doing it or not. I'm going to kind of try to farm just showing you how Fire Blast works, but it is an option. Alright. Rest of the gear. Heart of the Yoke, 39 all res, good stuff. Hodo, you just need FCR and damage, so that's good. We don't want the FCR, we want Enigma. This is a really good helm, and we do want the Cannot Be Frozen, because if we get frozen, it will affect our ability to quickly use traps. Once again, it's based on attack speed, so being frozen is bad. Having a Cham in your helmet is going to be really good. This is helping us get to 102 FCR with Phoenix. It's hard to with Phoenix. With Spirit, it's pretty easy. You can use Shaco and put his Cham in there. You can use a Raven Frost. Either way, though, this is helping our FCR and damage and our Cannot Be Frozen that we really need. 2-8 all res MF. Really good for getting that 102 FCR there. Phoenix for sustain, but also for the enemy fire res. It's dropping them down for negative 85 with just the Infinity. The ghosts then go down to 100 with this, negative 100. Very good. And then we have Call to Arms and Spirit on swap. We have Word Travelers. We have Mage Fists. Mage Fists are also giving us a fire skill, so this is pretty much a no-brainer on this build. And plus skills, mana, sustain, all very important stuff, so we don't run out of mana and we're not constantly having mana issues. That being said, this build will probably have some mana issues unless you put points into energy. So this is another one of those builds like the Lightning Zone where you can choose to put points into energy, and you might even want to because your health is already so absurd. I didn't mention it with the stats. Like you know, I just said put the rest of the points into vitality, but you really can put points in energy on here. And it can definitely synergize with Stone of Jordans and whatnot, and it can be actually a pretty good option. And then MF res, damage, yeah. Annie and Torch, yeah, we do have a perfect Assassin Torch on our plate, which is pretty cool. Alright, so without further ado, you can get a Shadow too, by the way. That's another option. You can go for a Shadow to help tank as well, but like I said, we have so much health and whatnot. So let's show this character in action now. So, as you can see, we are just obliterating the ghosts. It's good stuff. So, yeah, there you go. Fire Blast and OP. Like I said, you know, if you want to, you can even throw out like a Lightning Sentry if you want. You can. You can also choose to only go for the bigger packs of ghosts, like I mentioned before, with the faster approach to farming with the Lightning Sorceress. Notice that she's got another really good thing about Fire Blast is it's very precise. So one advantage of this character is that, you know, besides the fact that she can still farm other things very efficiently with the same build, is that your Fire Blasts are very targeted, so you won't often kill the ghost off the platforms unless you want to. It's a very targeted approach. It's even more precise than Fireball. So that's pretty cool stuff, right? Here we go. So yeah, as you guys can see, everyone on YouTube and whatnot, this build is killer. Yeah, as you can see, I only killed them off the edge there because I didn't wait 1 extra second. But I have to be very precise to kill them off the edge, so that's kind of cool, right? And then, like you said, you can still get all the same benefits of Arcane, just as with the other builds. Right there, I threw out like 1 lightning sentry, and as you can see, you can even get some collateral damage in with this build. It's nice. Very nice build. But there are other options. There are other options, and definitely want you guys to let me know below, like, what kinds of other options, what kind of other builds in the comments below maybe you think could work in here. Even after listening to my whole spiel about immunities and resistances of the ghosts, what builds that you've done in here. Of course, I also want to hear about, like, GG rune finds, charm finds, jewel finds. Just let me know what you find in here. Whatever kind of way you farm it, however you do it, Arcane is going to be insane. And these kinds of items that drop in here are not a joke. Perfect jewels, almost perfect jewels, perfect charms, almost perfect charms, really good charms, really good jewels, really solid runes. That's all stuff that's money, especially in the beginning of a ladder. That is money. So if everyone else is farming, you know, in Dariel and Mephisto, and you can just have this place to yourself pretty easily. You don't have to get frustrated that other people are taking your farming areas, even in a full game. And if you're farming with friends, add this to your roster of places to farm. And diversify the areas that you guys farm when you make games so that you can find more stuff. This area is probably one of the most underrated areas in Diablo 2. Just period. I have the data to prove it. It's all continuous data. Most of it gathered on stream. Full evidence and everything else. Of course, I'll put the link for that below, and the Arcane overview if you want to hear my own thoughts about the data about Arcane Sanctuary, just if you want to see just how ridiculous this area is. You even saw me find a really good charm. When I was testing before making this video today, I actually found a skiller as well, a Java skiller. You're just constantly finding like really high quality stuff in here, and you really can't go wrong. And if you want to craft, and crafting is another way to make a bank for sure, especially crafting amulets or blood rings. You really can't go wrong in here whatsoever. This place is just incredible. Runes, charms, jewelry, jewels, gems, even H keys, and even socket bases with collateral damage, you name it. Even some occasional insanely good unique drops. Just really insane farm Arcane Sanctuary is. Hope you guys enjoyed all the build overviews. I hope you guys learned more about what builds are strong in here, how to farm it, why to farm it, and when to farm it. And which you could pretty much farm it from the beginning of the game on a Fireball Sorceress, and it's pretty solid, as I've proven right there. I mean, you might die sometimes, especially if you don't have Barb Bow on Softcore, but, you know, it's worth it for this kind of loot. It's crazy stuff. I love Arcane Sanctuary. It's my favorite farm area in the game. Once again, I will put the data and the overview and the links below. In the comments, let me know your GG finds. Let me know if you know of any other builds. Let me know questions. Ask questions about it. This is definitely the most underrated area in Diablo 2, and in some ways it is like the strongest farm area, I would argue. With the efficient builds in hand, for charms at the very least, a lot of runes, not all the runes, but most of the high runes, and for a lot of the other items like the godly jewels and everything else as well. There are other areas that come close using other builds, but even if you take the best case scenarios for a lot of the other areas, just Arcane is just so insane. The ghosts just have such crazy drop rates, and so do the super chests. So just let me know about your guys' successes. Remember, you guys can always catch me at www.twitch.tv/Dark Humility for 6 to 7 days a week of Diablo 2 action, and we'll be playing D2R on hardcore on September 23rd to start an initial hardcore push. It'll be fun. Just to let you guys know, this build, well, this guide is not going to be on Maxroll. This is actually a YouTube exclusive. But of course, you can catch my other Maxroll guides on Maxroll, and of course, a lot of those video guides and D2 vanilla guides and D2R guides and PD2 guides in general on my YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Love you guys. My community is awesome. The Diablo 2 community is awesome. You guys are all awesome, and you guys can all be part of it. Let's kill it. Come D2R. Get rich. Arcane power farm. Farm it over and over and over. Let's go. Dark Humility. Over and out.